necessarily relevant to this particular matchup. But if you can take out if you can take out the Vindicta and 3-0, if that, I mean, then you gotta be still in pretty damn good shape.
Yeah, nice to see him back after missing the previous season by a qualifying match. In the top right-hand side, our Red Bros player is indeed MCanning.
And in the top left side, for the second time today, we are witnessing a player from the Shopify Rebellion. Lambo set the right example. Earlier, we thought he was in a bit of trouble in game 2, but in the end, he brought it home for the Rebellion. Can they get the clean sweep? Top left side, it is Scarlett.
Man, we start an Equilibrium. Of all the matchups I don't expect to see Equilibrium, it's a Zerg matchup, right? Because I think this map is extremely good for Zerg. It's huge. The gold base is very easily taken. To me, just screams like Zerg, Zerg, Zerg. So MCanning letting it come through obviously screams Sky Tosser, let's go, baby. Because, you know, it is a big map, and that part, at least, maybe he likes. Does that overcome how Zergy it is? I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, I'm with you. I find it a tiny bit surprising too. Now, some Zergs are still a little bit hesitant to take the gold too early. I was talking about it a lot in the beginning when this map was just called out, and I was casting a couple of games, and I was like, oh, the mega base, like gold minerals, rich Vespian geyser. And I think I don't know if I was casting any laser game, and I had Serral stop by in the chat, and he's like, the classic bait, take the gold into losing. Zergs always think they should take the gold, but it doesn't really go that well. And I gotta say, I think they did a really good job with this base, designing it on the map, because it is about as wide open as any base can ever be. You can literally attack it from every single angle. There is high ground as well, in which you can get good setup. So sure, it's an incredibly good base to get your hands on, but it's also very difficult to defend.
That's very true. Especially, I think, right now, what I've seen is a few people are starting to figure out, like, hey, I can actually attack it from the high ground instead of just trying to push into it from the front. And that's something that Terrans are starting to use if they do end up somehow on this map against, Zergs that they play. Losers pick and the Zerg gets the big Equilibrium, seems to be the common choice. That's what a couple of Terrans have been starting to go for, so we'll see what MCanning's plan is going to be. There's a couple of Lynx chase after the probe, and Lynx be coming up, the Queen coming out, Twilight Council is going to be the immediate build order choice from MCanning, so there we go.
Also, because this map is so freaking large, I thought maybe, and I know it's not really a thing in very high level PvZ, but because it's not a thing, I still think you can go for it every now and then, is that you open up with Resonating Glaives, and you get a pylon and a gateway out on the other side of the map. So you're not investing in the robo, but you still get the immediate reinforcements. Because even if you're as good as Scarlett, it's pretty hard to check every single spot, right, where the Protoss can build a pylon and a gate, but that is not going to happen. MCanning will just build the robo, doesn't have anything on the other side of the map anymore other than this adept. And unfortunately, the adepts do not come with the ability to warp in a pylon. I feel like they should though, Wardy. Should be fun.
Adept should just carry like a probe in its pocket, you know? A portable warping device. Ooh, Dark Shrine. Couldn't be MCanning's choice. Honestly, the DT Rush is a little bit of a throwback build. I mean, if you watch European PvZ, sometimes you see Geralt doing this. But it really isn't the most common of ways to play. It's one of those things where you get the DT, sometimes they can do well, you can Archon drop afterwards. Scarlett is going to see everything though. This Overlord is just going to get an instant scout, so her preparation can be absolutely perfect against it, and that feels real bad for MCanning.
Perhaps MCanning was actually hoping that Scarlett would take the gold as either her natural or as her third base, because then the DTs, they don't just have the potential to get on top of drones, but they can kind of be in between, right? And that can be very annoying, because as a Zerg, if you take your third base or your natural pretty far away, most of the time they have a slightly later layer, so then you truly rely on having Spore Crawlers as detection. So maybe this was kind of the plan of MCanning, where hope that Scarlett would take a base that is very exposed and then try to make magic happen with a bunch of DTs and maybe get on top of a Spore. But 4.5 minutes in, I think it's safe to say that none of that is happening. So MCanning is going to have to go for a very standard DT opening that is very easily scouted by Scarlett. And Scarlett's going to have all the time in the world to get ready for it. And does not feel that Scarlett should take too much damage. Is that a very early double prism? Okay. So maybe we can have like the decoy prism that goes into the main base, and it's like, you should definitely move your queens and zerglings over here. And then the second prism shows up. Is this the legend, or it's the legendary MCanning 9DT opening that I've never truly seen in action. But I know it was the thing for a very long time now. Flying into this many queens and a spore, I don't think it's the perfect start. But hey, maybe these DTs in the bottom side of the map can make some hedging happen at the third base.
I just had to warp in one defensively, but yeah, that Prism is set up to warp in another couple DTs, and Scarlett on the other side is going to start fighting with these lings, but that's what the DT is good for, as we wait for the aggressive DTs to get going as well.
We might need another unit here, because that Cybercore is dropping dangerously low on HP, and I know the Dark Templar is doing its thing, but losing the Cybercore would still suck. The Stalker has died. DTs are trying to do something in the main base. Seems that at least a single queen, 2 queens have died. More DTs have shown up now on the bottom left side. So maybe this is that chaos that MCanning was hoping for, and 5 drones going down, 2 queens have died. Hey, it's a start, Wardy, and now we're getting on top of this spore as well, but there is at least an Overseer to grant some more permanent detection.
Yeah, that means that these roaches can get the DTs, and a couple of them go down. We lost 3 DTs
DTs
overall.
in the main. DTs in the main, they're still going. Because the queens have died, and yeah, they hopped back out of that war prism. I mean, honestly, pretty sick start for MCanning. The only sad thing about it is that MCanning is still a 2-base Protoss, right? So the amount of damage that was dealt there, pretty good. It's actually rebuilding the Cybercore, maybe very afraid of losing that initial Cybercore, or it's because it's a full wall-off, but with the DT on hold position, I don't think it's necessarily a full wall-off. I mean, this is just chaos, man. This is really some NA StarCraft. War Prism in the natural is going to drop a few more DTs, going to get on top of drones again. MCanning is definitely doing a lot more damage than I thought he would with this opening.
He is just chaos out of nothing and just able to get a lot done. Obviously, Scarlett is still looking good drone-wise. She has still got a decent army up. She's now getting Overlord speed as well as Roach speed. So that might just be a case of getting, you know, the ability to kind of move Overseers around a bit more quickly, keep them between bases with the DT count. But might also mean that we're heading into something a bit aggressive. We'll see what she wants to do. As MCanning just now starting to take the third base. Of course, that's fairly delayed. The initial DT investment was still a pretty big one. So for everything he did, it came at a cost as well.
Yep, it was a lot of damage, but you need to do a lot of damage if you're opening up 2-base double War Prism, and I think 8 Dark Templars in total. We have lost 6, we still have 2 on the map, so yeah, open up with 8 DTs, obviously one of them was defensive. The double, very early double Robot Disruptor has some potential, right? Because if Scarlett would be stubborn and she'd be making a lot of Roaches and Ravages of a weak economy, then 1 or 2 Novas could actually put MCanning in pole position to bring this home, but you look at the drone count now, and it's 73. Even if Scarlett would have a bad attack, I think she'd still be alright, because Disruptors don't just run to the other side of the map and then close out the game. But let's just see where MCanning takes it. So far, Wardy, at the very bare minimum, I think it's safe to say that we are very entertained by everything that the Can Man is showing us.
Yep. Absolutely with you there. As we will see, next is going to go down to the 12 o'clock, so we're just going to put MCanning down on a 4th. But Scarlett's already moving over, and I think she's going to not waste any time in trying to deny it. Yet she does back up, so she is not going to send it. And it means that MCanning's getting a little bit more time to get set up than I thought he might. I thought Scarlett really would kind of start bringing a bit of more of an aggressive flair at this point.
I hope that MCanning is aware that he walled himself in. The Disruptors cannot leave the main base, Wardy. Take a look at the main base of MCanning to the left.
That's not good.
I don't think he was aware of it, because yeah, that's a little bit unfortunate, but now at least we have a whole bunch of Disruptors to play with. NA moment.
Yeah, the problem is, though, I mean, you're still going to have that issue continue to happen, right? So you're going to have to go and kill that Cybercore off or so, open up that position. Right now, you got to deal with this army. That's a good Disruptor shot. Scarlett could not split her Roach Ravager away. It's quite choky over on this area, so unable to do too much. Swarm Hosts have popped out for Scarlett. How are we feeling about the defense against Swarm Hosts, though? Because I feel like Disruptors aren't super reliable against them.
Nope, nothing really is in this army. Yeah, that single Archon, if you'd be near a battery or two, and this is also a great map with some Nidus network. More Novas flying forward. Gotta say, these connections have been pretty damn good. Now, that's the first one that completely whiffed. Even that one on links is not too shabby on the side of MCanning. Unfortunately, does end up losing one Disruptor. You said it before, it's still going to happen. MCanning rebuilt his Cybercore, so you should really just, no, don't kill your pylon, mate. Kill that Cybercore, because you have a backup core. Why would you kill your pylon, Marty?
Yeah, just not thinking. Just forgot, right? A little bit caught up. Oh, the DT actually absorbs all of the Swarm Host's Locusts diving down, so that's huge because now they're easier to kind of disrupt her. They're just not going to get in position as much, so the first wave of Locusts for Scarlett does not achieve anywhere near what it could have done. And Scarlett definitely having a couple of sloppier moments herself so far at the start of this best of 3.
Yeah, but I think he's still looking pretty good because he's got the Mega Base. That is another Nova that does connect with a decent amount of roaches. I do think, ooh, MCanning needs to be careful that he doesn't blow up his own units as we have a forward blink on the side of the Canman and another picture-perfect Nova grabs like 6 roaches in the Ravager. And now it is really time for Scarlett and her Locusts that are chilling below the natural of MCanning to do a lot of damage, and that definitely seems like a dead Nexus. And I'm afraid for MCanning that it's going to be a lot more painful than just a dead Nexus as he was going to lose it. Don't go there with your probes. Oh my goodness, I can't believe that the probes actually kind of get away with that. Well, not completely, but kind of.
Yeah, meanwhile, Scarlett's still losing roaches on the other side of the map. She only has roaches on the other side of the map, and that definitely starts to feel like a problem, right? Because now you're in a position where you kind of got to deal with this army. The Swarm Host again and Nidus, so they could maybe actually come home via that Nidus and use themselves offensively. I feel like we might need something here.
Yeah, I mean, we can bring the Swarm Host back, right? That would be a little something that is pretty useful. These Novas have just been way too big. Almost every single Nova coming out of MCanning is cash money, and Scarlett is now indeed looking like she's in a bit of trouble. There are 21 roaches on the production tab. I'm just waiting for those roaches to pop, and then maybe the Locusts come in from the right side. At least MCanning is going to get the heads up that is where the Swarm Hosts are coming from. Here come the Locust Wardy. They need to be big. That's a lot of Locusts going towards the top right side, all selling for a single Stalker, but I guess Scarlett will feel as long as he survives, it is going to be okay. And survive if she will.
Survive she will as we chase these last few Stalkers down. Obviously, they got left out of the recall. The recall obviously felt a little bit rushed and was not ideal. So that's another little bit of another growing pain, I suppose, here for MCanning. As his Prism Disruptors join back up on the top side. Watchtower hanging out over there. As we see a few Lings coming over, and Disruptor shot firing, and is going to get a group of those Lings. How come every Disruptor is just magnetic to Scarlett's units right now?
MCanning is creating a highlight reel for himself of a single game. That's pretty impressive. I feel like he landed more good Novas in this game than I did in my entire PvZ career. But will it be enough? That is the big question. Scarlett had a Spine Crawler and a Sport buying some time. Scarlett has been a little bit reckless with her Locusts as well, right? You mentioned it the very first time, but that definitely wasn't the only one. But despite all of these things that we thought weren't perfect for Scarlett, she's still looking like she's in a mighty fine spot. It is obviously important to clean it up a tiny bit, as one of the 2 prisms will get picked off, as it was in the warping mode. Seems like DT's got on top of a hatchery there, and there is no Overseer. Well, there is an Overseer, but it's all the way in the top right side of the map, so Scarlett needs to get another one at home.
Disruptors still doing their jobs. Every shot manages to get roaches, getting so much done. Scarlett bounces back a little bit. Another Disruptor lands dead center on units. And MCanning just keeps on warping in, keeps on sending it. Never rebuilt his natural, by the way. It's just full send on what he has right now. The Locusts are, again, just flying off in a weird place. Like, they are not where the army of MCanning is. So MCanning's going to go on the gold, and Scarlett completely lost track of him.
Yep, now I actually think Scarlett is in trouble. Earlier I thought with the economy and all the extra units on the way it's gonna be okay. MCanning, please finish off that hatchery. It's 2 hits away from dying and it will go down. It seems that MCanning just wants to play it safe. Wanted to make sure that he wouldn't be in trouble against these Brootlings. Scarlett needs a good fight right here, right now, but without the Locust, that is going to be very hard because her supply is inflated because of the 12 Swarmers we still have, but they have just not been helping out at all. The Locusts keep on landing, keep on flying in wrong directions, and Scarlett, despite the fact that she's got +3 missile attacks finishing up in the near future, is in all sorts of trouble here in game 1. Roaches and Ravages do get on top of a couple of the Disruptors, but another decent Nova connects. Fuel Ravages go down, Zealots show up on the right side. The supplies are close, but that is obviously super good news for MCanning, because most of the supply of Scarlett is in the Swarmos that may get a Nexus in the top right side. And look at how open that Nexus is, by the way, Water. You don't even need to have a whole bunch of units here. Just a couple of Roaches or a couple of Zerglings would have been good enough to shut this base down, but that did not happen. The final few Roaches get caught in the center of the map, and I actually think, even though MCanning is on 15 workers, that it's good enough, right? The Roach one goes down too.
He just can't, I mean, Scarlett can just not build enough stuff right now. MCanning is just not going to stop. Again, he found cash money with every single Disruptor shot he fired, and Zealots in the main base, you're right. The worker count does not matter because the army that stands is typically good enough unless Locusts do a lot. We are starting to lose a couple of those swarm hosts now as MCanning's army getting a little bit split up. I still think he's got enough to send this all the way home to victory.
Yeah, the Lynx are a bit scary because Lynx do have +1 melee and they've got adrenal glands. And Scarlett still has that base in the bottom side of the map. That base is very important, but MCanning is on top of this base now to the final few stalkers. One DT is just chilling there on the left. Come on, DT, put in your work because every single unit is important. In the end, it is good enough for MCanning, who takes the 1-0 lead after the double Warp Prism 8 DT opening. That was quite something, Wadi. It felt that Scarlett was in a perfectly fine spot for quite some time, but the Locusts, they were just living their own life, and they just kept on going for targets that they absolutely should not have gone for.
Yeah, I think just multiple times over, Swarm Host Locusts landing on stuff that just wasn't good enough, right? At the end of the day, like, they just did not have enough of a factor, and then by the time we finally saw the Swarm Host do something, Scarlett was in serious trouble at home, and all of that might have been averted as well anyways, if not for every single disruptor just absolutely lathering on damage onto the roach pile. Like, that was the real issue, right? On top of the Locust being bad, is that the disruptors were great. Like, they were incredible.
Yeah, I gotta say, it's not that Scarlett never moved her units. She definitely did move her units. It's just that MCanning always seemed to know where these units were being moved towards, and then moved his Novas in a perfect direction. I mean, other than the 9 DT opening, and I know he had a Tempest faced, MCanning obviously historically has been a lover of the Disruptor. We know he's very good with them, very capable of executing with Disruptors at the highest level. And that was impressive. It felt that the man couldn't miss. Like Michael Jordan or LeBron James on fire in whatever quarter they may have. I don't know where they are right now in basketball regular season, I guess. But yeah, that was impressive. Just everything turned into gold. Nice little surprise in our final best of 3 of the day. MCanning is not there yet, and unfortunately with this format, this is not the same as the round robin format where we could now have the speech about how it's very nice to take a map off Scarlett because not many other people would. In the Swiss format, Wardy, it doesn't truly matter, right? Like, you kind of just need to win your series. I mean, sure, it looks good historically, but at this point, yeah, 0-2, 1-2, opening round with the Swiss format doesn't really change anything. The only thing that matters is winning your best of 3.
Yep, and that means that Scarlett can bring it back right now, going into Site Delta. We'll see what MCann has planned for us, though, because after his build in game number 1, I'm kind of down for whatever he wants to do. You know what, MCann, you take the wheel and show us what you've got for us here. As we'll jump into this second game in just a moment. MCann took a 1-minute break, but yeah, I mean, who wouldn't after a game like that? Probably needs a moment to calm himself down, and now we get back into the series.
You know, the beautiful thing is that we obviously saw at a certain point that it's looking really good and that he has pretty much done it. But if you're a player and you're down to 15 probes and you're losing bases, you never believe until that GG gets written out by your opponent. Even if you're in the net, you're in the main base, if you still see different units coming in, you're always so scared of those like final 32 Zerglings showing up and 32 Lynx with +1 melee and adrenal glands. If they get on top of your stalkers and your disruptors, it is just over. So I can imagine that was a incredibly exhilarating moment for this man in the top left side of Site Delta, taking the 1-0 lead. It is MCanning.
Up against our blue Zergy in the bottom right-hand side from the Shopify Rebellion. It is Scarlett. Realizes she can take the natural location, turns that drone around, pops it down, and off we go.
It's obviously not too long ago that Scarlett was competing in the GSL Codes, and hopefully it's spoiler-free to talk about that by now, but she looked good in those games, right? Was awfully close to winning her group. And I can't imagine that if you have put in that amount of time to look, I can only assume that she put in a lot of time to look that strong and that good at the day of the GSL Codes, that has worn off. So I think that Scarlett is still in excellent form, and that makes it even more impressive on the side of MCanning that he has taken the 1-0 lead here.
No, absolutely a statement. I did not really have any doubts coming into this. I thought Scarlett was going to look good, and I thought MCanning was going to be fun. But against Scarlett, I thought it was going to be one of those matches where Scarlett just kind of gets ahead, wins it out, closes in. But absolutely not the case. I've been proven completely wrong in my expectations, so now I'm on the MCanning hype train, man. There's no other place to be.
Just see where it goes, eh?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's going to be fun. I'm excited. It's been a fun day of games overall. I think The Swiss format, I loved it last season when we had the summer season. I thought it was very cool, but we know that in the beginning it's going to be a bit slow. But the whole idea of this format, instead of round robin, is that every single day it should be better than the previous one, because the games will get more and more important. The 1-0 start or the 0-1 start, when you can lose or win 3 series, doesn't really ruin your tournament or make your tournament. But from here on out, every day it gets better. Like starting 0-1 is okay, but 0-2, that's a problem immediately, because then you're a series away from being eliminated. I think as an opening day or the second day, I think we had a couple fun games, and I'm definitely not disappointed.
Absolutely. For day 2, you know, round 1, the tournament only gets better from here, you know? Like, every day in theory should get better and better, so well, every round should get better and better. Obviously, round 1 takes a few days, of course, but yeah, no, we've had some great games today, man. And MCanning firing an Adept up over here to see what's up. This game, he is off to that Stargate, Roddy, but it's a proxy off to that right side, so he is going to bring a bit of fire early against Scarlett again.
Yep, and I mean, I never truly decided how I felt about proxy Stargates in this matchup, because I feel like we have seen it time and time and time again. Okay, the oracles show up a couple seconds earlier, and perhaps they are more well hidden, so there is slightly more potential in the oracles. But the longer the game goes, Zerg players, the level of Scarlett, they'll know immediately, right? If they see that first oracle show up a little bit quicker than it's supposed to show up, you know it's proxied. As soon as link speed is done, the Zerg will start looking for it. They can get on top of it, and then you need to worry about Aspire later on, because then you can always just defend at first with queens, links, roaches, drop the Spire, and it's really hard to defend against the Spire if you open up with a Stargate, but then you can't use it anymore. But so far, this quick oracle is absolutely living up to the hype of a proxy oracle. 5 drones, and I would say for 5 drones, it's still pretty damn healthy.
Yep.
Look at the follow-up, Waddy. Oh my goodness. Look at the follow-up. What a build. MCanning. I love it. You know what? Be crazy. If it's the opening day of the ESL Winters America and you're going up against one of the bigger names in the tournament and obviously one of the strongest players in the tournament, why not roll the dice and be crazy? And this is the kind of crazy that I absolutely love. And that Twilight, I think it's fake. I think he's going to cancel it.
Yeah, absolutely. This Phoenix going to knock down the Overlord. You cancel the Twilight and you just go with the gate all in. You're not going to wait around for a Twilight upgrade to finish here. Not with how many gateways you build initially, not when you hide 3 of them down on the bottom side of the map. You're starting to warp in over there already, and that is looking great. The only thing that this Phoenix could do, maybe get an Overlord down the left side as well, but yeah, I mean, it looks as though MCanning's going to get this attack going. Scarlett is building a roach drone halfway done, but how much is she going to drone?
Yeah, and these roaches are going to be slow roaches. We can't forget about that, right? Because obviously they don't have the roach speed upgrade yet that you need a lair for. So far, the answer to how much is he going to drone is a lot, Waddy. That's just the best way to answer it. We have a bunch of Stalkers already. Now, this is hype. For opening day of the Swiss format, Scarlett is on 58 drones and she is completely in the dark. She's about to get the heads up that this is happening for the very first time. And there is a Phoenix that can actually help out, and killing a queen this early on is big. The queens are not sure where they want to stay. Scarlett does not want to give up on this base. Now, obviously, these gateway units, Wardy, are underwhelming, right? The Stalkers without Blink, the Zealots without Charge, but in these numbers, as a complete surprise, it could very well get the job done.
Spell Crawler re-burrows up as we are going to see the Queens here to try and push this back as roaches spawn. A couple of them again picked off already. MCanning has to find the right balance of Zealots and Stalkers here, right? Stalkers really deal damage to the roaches, but Zealots to tank against those Lings. Need to kind of find that balance as we do have the units of Scarlett starting to come through in a little bit better numbers. She got Ravager morphed in as well. That's quite exposed to the bottom. We eat a Corrosive Foul though as MCanning. That ain't so great. And now Scarlett looks as though she's getting a bit of momentum against this and is pushing this back through the bottom side.
Yeah, but the initial Lings did a really good job in buying some time. Maybe that Phoenix could have lifted and dropped another queen, but every second that goes by, it becomes less and less and less likely that MCanning can turn this into something. Kind of thought that if a crazy build like this was ever going to work, it had to happen right here, right, with a 4 base setup for Scarlett and a 20 drone advantage after losing 5 drones. Scarlett did cancel her lair, by the way, even though it was very close to finishing up. But that just goes to show how serious she took this by the time she realized what was happening. And this is unfortunately where I really stopped believing in the basic gateway units. They're just so bad. If you don't have Blink, you don't have Charge. It is truly a one-time, one-punch man kind of build. When you show up, you crush, you win. If you don't crush and win, you pretty much lose by default.
Yep. No, there's a reason these builds aren't popular or common or anything, right? It's like, they're not really meant to work, but sometimes they will, right? If the Zerg just doesn't quite figure it out. But like you said, it had to happen then and there. These gateway units are kind of terrible if they don't have any upgrades or anything. And Scarlett is just going to keep pushing back with the Roach Ravager, and she's obviously on top of the warping point now, so as units warp in, they're dying as they get built. That's obviously not ideal either.
No, and obviously MCanning knows that he hasn't done the amount of economic damage to even be hopeful of these kinds of battles. Like, if you take these fights while also killing a hatchery, if taking out 20 drones, then you're like, well, maybe, you know, maybe we can buy some time to get our third Nexus online, to get eventually a real Twilight, because the previous one, of course, got cancelled. Now we're gonna get a real one, but yeah, the economic damage just wasn't dealt. The hatchery took a bit of a beating, but didn't really get close to falling. It's a bit of a shame for MCanning, because it was crazy, and I thought it was crazy enough that it just might work. But, you know, Gabe often tells us that SCVs beat Stalkers. Apparently drones do too, buddy.
That's true, man. Stalkers aren't good against workers. Probe's pretty good against them as well.
What are Stalkers good against? You know, do they ever win anything? Oh yeah, they do. Once they have Blink, they're very good.
Very different situation. GG, Scarlett ties it up 1-1, does hold her nerve and does find the defense against the all-in from MCanning as he makes it exciting. But again, it just kind of flops as soon as it stops working there. So GG's. And we look towards game number 3 once again today. We're getting lots of game 3s today, which is nice. Yesterday was a bit of a non-showing in game 3s until the very end. Today we've had game 3s throughout, so just been a little bit more fun to watch. As yeah, day 2 coming to a close, man.
I was just taking another look at that actual hold, because when it started, Scarlett really didn't have that many units, right? So you're like, oh, what could MCanning have done better? What did Scarlett do right? And Scarlett for a split second moved her queens away, but then she's like, no, I'm going to move them back into the mineral line. I've got units spawning here, and the drones were very useful, because the Zealots, they kind of wandered off on their own little journey, and they got surrounded by the drones. And obviously, if it's a full drone surround, a couple queens helping out, 1 or 2 roaches helping out, yeah, that made the Zealots useless, and then the extra links, they made the Stalkers really struggle. It was just not the ideal setup. Ideally, the Stalkers were maybe a bit more at the bottom, or they should have just stayed together, right? Maybe if the Zealots just stay next to the Stalkers can still do their thing from range. You didn't have the Zealots wander off by themselves and get surrounded by drones, but yeah. These builds, they have fallen out of the meta like 9-10 years ago. A lot of people still talk about Scarlett's legendary win over Dong Regu when Scarlett played Protoss. That was basically something similar like this, right? Like a 7-gate. Yeah, there was no proxy Stargate with oracles, but it was just a 7-gate where you make the basic units. But back then, StarCraft 2, the economies were very different, so things hit at a different moment, and it was a lot harder for Zerg to get the right amount of units out. Queens were, of course, different as well. Very different back then. But yeah, these things, they're not very good unless they come as a complete surprise. And if Scarlett would have made one more round of drones, I think she would have been in real trouble. But well done. Great job by Scarlett defending that. Seeing it that late, being that surprised by it. Very impressive.
And she is in the bottom left-hand side of the map. Alcyone to round us out today. A blue Zerg, Scarlett.
Thought we were going with the LC1 body. Unbelievable.
LC1.
Kidding, mate, kidding. Top right side, playing a very entertaining best of 3 so far, and I think that's everything we can hope for on the opening days of the ESL Americas Regionals. Spawning as the Red Protoss. Does he have one more crazy build up his sleeve for us? Maybe it's Tempest time, because I know he likes those as well. This is MCanning.
Yeah, what are we gonna get up to? MCanning. Like, he's obviously come in with a few different builds. He's had some few ideas. Love that. What does he have for game 3? What did he, think he might go for should he win in one of those first couple of maps? Hopefully something fun, man, I believe. I really believe.
It is a bit heartbreaking, though, when you go for such a crazy build, and you know that there are a couple of steps to make that build a success, right? And like, step number 1 is hope that your proxy doesn't get scouted immediately. Step number 2 is keep the Oracle alive and deal some damage. Then step number 3 is getting another proxy up that doesn't get scouted. And with every step that's a success, like, your heart starts beating a little faster. You're like, okay, okay, and especially if you're up 1-0. Like, if you're down 0-1, you're like, okay, maybe. But if you're up 1-0 and you're so close to definitely causing the biggest upset of all 3 regions so far, it is a bit heartbreaking when you have to start all over again in game 3, because you often feel like, that was your one shot, your one opportunity to create that big upset.
Yeah. Let's see if we can mentally reset a little bit then, as we have Overlord just wandering to the upper right. Obviously, initial scouting going down. The hatchery was allowed to go on the natural, which is great as well. But Scarlett getting that in position and not having to worry about it being off location, which can maybe power up some of the weirder builds that MCanning might bring out as well. So just good to get that stuff all set up normally. A couple Lings will come and chase a probe.
Most of the time when I've seen Scarlett on this map, she looked really good in whatever matchup. I don't know if there is something specific about it that she likes, or if I just happen to catch games where she looked incredibly good, but I've rarely seen her have a bad game on this map. And I know it's not that old yet, but this is one of the few things that stood out to me immediately, and I'm like, damn, Scarlett feels at home over here.
Yeah. I actually really like this map. I feel like it's interesting enough without being, like, particularly, like, unfair for anybody. You know, the bottom half of the map is easily accessible, but still isn't, like, open straight away. Just thought the way it's laid out kind of works nicely, you know, so gives me kind of slight Golden Wall vibes. Maybe not quite as crazy, but yeah.
I'm feeling Fleet Beacon, by the way, Waddy. Like, this is gonna be and there's the Void Ray. Like, you know, MCanning is definitely, I think, a player that comes in with a plan for a game 1 and a game 2, and if we get there, a game 3. So kind of feeling a Void Ray into a Fleet Beacon. On the other end, that's maybe in a weird way almost predictable from him. So perhaps it is Void Ray into a Twilight, and then we just shade 20 Adepts to the other side of the map. But I have the Fleet Beacon feeling. I still feel like we're heading in that direction. Oh, never mind. At least not yet.
Caster cursed. I'm just gonna get the Void Ray to shut down an Overlord or so, try and play Glaives behind it, but as Scarlett, when you see this Void Ray first, you gotta be like, okay, what are you trying to hide from me, you know? Like, you're already playing a tricky series, now you're trying to hide scouting immediately. I feel like Scarlett's gotta take some precautions, but she's on a very fast lair, by the way. And MCanning's gonna go to a lot of gates with this as well.
Yep, a 4-minute lair while also having Link speed, so it's not even that Scarlett skipped out on Link speed and did some other stuff. Yeah, let's see. What does MCanning have? He doesn't have anything out on the map though, right? And that kind of means that you're going to be warping in Adepts at home. Maybe this is just a setup to get a very quick 3-base and then still be aggressive a little bit later. In that way, it's perhaps almost sad for MCanning that he just killed that Zergling right before this Nexus got warped in, right? Because Scarlett is going to be a bit more on edge and more worried right now than if she would have just seen that Nexus go down.
Yeah, that's very true. The only good news is I guess the Link saw the probe with the Adept if she was paying attention. But yeah, I know what you mean, as Rotron is about halfway up. Larry's going to complete now. She's going to have a lot of gas banked up. Obviously no Rotron to spend it just yet. As the first Adepts continue to warp in, and she is going to drop the Spire. Well, if she survives to make mutas, amazing. But it's definitely going to be an open window for MCanning to try to shoot a shot.
Yeah, but we saw how quickly Scarlett was in canceling her lair in that previous game. And that lair was like 65-70% done. But she immediately realized that she needed all of her hands on all the resources that are possible. Cancel that lair in a split second. And I think if she feels that she needs to, she can always cancel the Spire. Then queue up a few more units. The drone count is definitely high, like proper high. And with 7 more on the way, okay. Scarlett definitely needs to start building roaches now, Waddy. Because I was like, okay, 60-something drones, I think that's doable, but it's still... Did that Overseer not see any of them?
Didn't see a single Adept, so completely in the dark right now is the Adepts. Gonna have a shade in a moment that will shade towards actually, like, you know, a mineral line. Scarlett building 3 more Overlords. Spire, again, just money not spent. Now she will have to start building roaches, so she will have the money to spend on those roaches. Let's see how it goes. 9, 10 roaches start up, but these Adepts are going to have a great head start in terms of being able to deal some damage. They jump on the natural.
Yeah, but maybe not the best spot ever to jump, right? Because this is where all the queens are, and this many queens can absolutely battle these Adepts. There's not a War Prism or a gateway on the other side of the map, so this amount of Adepts is kind of what it is. 5 drones is okay, but I think MCanning was hoping for a whole lot more. I think MCanning needs a whole lot more, Waddy. And somehow 2 probes have died on the other side of the map. And this is a lot of lost mining time, but it's not a lot of economic damage yet.
No. It did definitely feel like you needed like a little extra probably like, you know, 15 to 20 workers at the very least. Scarlett now maintains a worker lead, and now she's been able to build her units, and obviously Spire may have been scouted. Now she doesn't have to make
Spire may die. Spire may die to Adepts. We're gonna recall the Adepts. Queens are here to save the day.
Yeah, No, I was just thinking, MCanning's already building Phoenix, so if then Scarlett just continues to build into Roaches, it's actually kind of bad for MCanning, right? Because then he's got Phoenix that don't necessarily play a role in this game, so it's kind of a little bit of the back and forth guessing game we have to play.
But that's where the DTs come into play, why? Because it's Phoenix DT, baby! So then you can have defensive DTs to keep you safe. But yeah, if Scarlett can just continue droning up, then obviously Scarlett can start building Roach Corruptor. And Roach Corruptor is better than Phoenix DT. Scarlett gets the scout there, by the way, on the Dark Shrine as well. I think that's a pretty useful scout, because otherwise you could find yourself in a weird spot where you're kind of committed to the fight, and then the DTs show up and you lose a few more Roaches than you were supposed to lose. So big scout by Scarlett. Shame for MCanning that the first shade was not quite on top of all the queens, but was in range of all the queens, right? Well, yeah. I think maybe this was a moment to kind of split them up and go into different directions immediately, because other than the big blob of queens, Scarlett had no answer for even, let's say, 3 adepts. And we're talking between minerals somewhere. I don't think Scarlett would have been able to clean up 3 adepts with the amount of links he had.
No, absolutely. If the adepts just got a little bit choked up, that's the issue with the angle he came from, because he came from like the left side, just didn't have the range to get somewhere like a little bit more annoying. As Roach is going to knock down some rocks, Scarlett opening the map, Hydroden coming through for her, and she is just exploding into the macro game, as obviously she has been just set on a lot of drones at this stage for a little while. She'll take the watchtower back under her own control. You can see the units of MCanning. The current army just does not look that great from him. It's just not very scary. It's not that compelling. Not much of a believer in it right now.
True, but let's say there is a world where Scarlett wouldn't fire up a hive right now, then we could say like, if you're only down 14 workers, you're going up to 4 bases, killing a couple drones with DTs and double Robo Disruptor. That's not bad. It's just the problem is that Scarlett will obviously go into hive, because Scarlett is a world-class Zerg, and she will know that if she would stay on Lair Tech here, then the game could get very scary. Because I think with Lair Tech alone, I'm not sure if she could break MCanning. You kind of have to go up a couple of ramps here. There are some cannons, there are some batteries. Don't forget about that one Void Ray that could still be very useful in dealing with Roaches. But especially the Disruptors would be a problem. Scarlett knows that that could be a problem, and that's why she's going to fire up the hive. And of course, we'll eventually find her way to Vipers.
Just no rush from Scarlett to kind of do anything too drastic, like you said. I think wait for hive tech, wait for Vipers to come out, and know that you can take a much better position from there. So that seems to be the plan. As Roaches and Hydras knock down the rocks, and the DT in the center is caught there as well, so that will also go down. We have had a few DTs just show up and get a few drones here and there, but Scarlett's been so kind of, she's had so much of a cushion on her economy that a couple drones that have been lost every now and then haven't really added up to anything.
No, but I think that MCanning is not just doing that because he wants to get some drone damage. That is, of course, what you initially hope for, and you don't ever want to lose a DT. But it's also nice to just hopefully keep your opponent on their side of the map for a little while longer, right? So your disrupt count can just keep on climbing. Because with 120 supply, you never feel like moving out. But if MCanning could buy enough time with those DTs until you can get up to 170, 180, then you start believing again, where you're like, hey, I did it in game 1 with a whole bunch of Novas. And if I can just repeat that performance, perhaps we can do that one more time. As he's around 155 right now, blinks forward, probably realizing that, hey, Scarlett is definitely going up to hive. Otherwise, I'd be in way more trouble. It would be difficult to survive. I would have to land good Novas. If it's too good to be true, then you obviously know that your opponent is transitioning and there's scary stuff happening. And I think that's why MCanning is now moving out maybe a little bit earlier than he imagined himself moving out, but just hoping he can strike before those Vipers are here.
Yep, absolutely. If you can hit a good time, then maybe there's some hope, as we do have the Zealots in the main base going to come through. Queens will transfuse each other up, though, and they will be the main part of the defense. MCanning going to start up Storm, definitely realizing he might just have to go to a later stage of this. Storm is a double whammy, because at least then you can also feed back some Vipers, perhaps, just by having that High Templar out and them having a reason to be in the army. So that's nice. The Vipers are getting the high energy, and Scarlett with the opportunity, I think, realistically, to really go. I mean, she's not building a lurker den or anything, right? So it doesn't really make sense for Scarlett to wait around much longer, and it takes these Vipers to get full energy.
That buffed Viper body. 4 of them. Leeching energy from the same hatchery, and the hatchery didn't die. That's crazy. We're gonna land a couple of abducts. One Immortal dies immediately. The Disruptor dies as well. And now MCanning's army, at least this part of his army, looks kind of sad. And you can only imagine that there's a whole lot more, but you mentioned the store and you mentioned High Templars. Unfortunately, we don't see them anywhere on our screen. And all of these Disruptors are, unlike Game 1, just sitting ducks. And they haven't done anything yet.
There's a couple of feedbacks, and there's the Storm starting to come in. There's a Disruptor that does get a connection just on the edge, but far from the magnetic shots that we were seeing in that first game. It is not quite enough so far. As Scarlett, at least though, now without Vipers, may have to be a little bit more cautious. She's instead just going to go dive up towards this 12 o'clock base, try and take this out while moving away from that army in general. She's just going to find some side defense. She'll turn and fight a little bit. Storm is not getting in range, so she doesn't have to go much further. Kills the Prism in the process. And Scarlett continues to back away. She has a ton of money to spend, and when she does spend it, she'll be instantly remaxed.
Cryptoons are going to get cleaned up here. Where does MCanning go? Like, you're always thinking, like, should I transition into that fleet beacon now? Should I drop it and try to either survive with defensive Tempest for a little while, or hope that I can get a whole bunch of carriers out? But MCanning probably feels that he is going to be giving Scarlett way too much time if he wants to make that transition. So he's just going to double down on the units that he's currently working with. But the abducts are just landing over and over and over again. And too many expensive units are falling while not really doing anywhere near as much as they did in game 1.
Stalkers blink up. Queen's going to take some damage. Our Hydras, our Lings will go fight back. Disruptor shot will fire through, but again, only hitting a group of Queens that can transfuse each other back up to HP. The Lings are getting bases and probes on the right-hand side. And again, it's all adding up in favor of Scarlett at the moment as our Stalkers continue to fight. Another big storm at least lands on the Hydras. There's nothing stopping these Lings. They're going for another mineral line.
The Lings are going completely untouched. There are DTs killing a hatchery very casually, by the way, in the bottom side of the map. There was a single spore there, but that spore was kind of exposed, so MCanning just right-click on top of that spore and kill the hatch. That is cute, but it doesn't make up for the Nexus that just went down at the 3 o'clock position and the 26 drones that Scarlett got to go with that Nexus. MCanning gets a hatchery, Scarlett gets a Nexus and 26 workers. I think we all know who's that trade going to favor. And now we finally, by the way, go into those mutas that I think Scarlett was dreaming of a long time ago. Yeah, why not, right? The Phoenixes just died above the Hydra somewhere. They were trying to lift a couple of units. And these mutas have damn good upgrades. +2 flyer attacks is done. And for some reason, we've got +3 flyer attacks on the way as well. So these mutas are going to slap.
Viper's even found an Abduct on a High Templar there. We're going to get a few more Abducts, more High Templar, and Immortal going down. The damage just keeps on growing as we are going to see the army now backing away from Scarlett, but she is maxed. And again, if the mutas can show up in a few different places that MCanning's not ready for, that could be a major problem. He is not ready to deal with that amount of mutas. He's actually diving forward across the map, but attacking in with Storm is much more difficult than defending with Storm. And not even that's been going great. The DTs get a heads up on the mutas, but there's just nothing here, Roddy.
Safe to say that Scarlett was very unhappy with the fact that she did not have any Vipers to deal with Disruptors in game 1. I think for as poor as a job perhaps he did in avoiding all these balls, he's done an amazing job here in game 3 when it matters the most. The Storms, they've been able to connect a little bit with the Hydras, but the Hydras are still in very high numbers. I gotta give kudos to MCanning for still making this a bit of a scrap, right? Where Scarlett